Hey, Michelle here with the Magic is You podcast. In this episode, I'm answering a question from a listener. She asks, what do you do when aspects of your life start to fall apart after setting an intention? I set an intention for how I wanted to feel in my home and environment, and now I unexpectedly have to move, and I'm not prepared in any capacity to do so. But I ultimately have zero choice, and it's interrupted my desires and actions to start a business. Okay, I don't know how long I have until my kids start to come in here, so I'm going to try to answer this quickly, not because I'm trying to make light of how hard your situation may feel, but because I, my kids are in the other room. So the advice I can share on this is that what you're going through is completely normal. This is actually how it goes. Anytime you set an intention, there is a season that kind of requires, if you want to live into that intention, part of what happens is you have to go through this season of allowing things to fall apart. So there is this feeling of everything is falling apart. And the biggest tip that I can give to you is that that is not a bad thing. That is actually a very, very good thing. Because for you to create a new reality, you have to let the one that you are currently in fall apart. When I first started experiencing this, it felt terrible and devastating, but I learned that this is actually just part of the process, because every single time I wanted to break through to the next level, it always coincided with this falling apart season. And I just had to learn to stop making that a bad thing and to feel all of the emotions that would come up in that season and not resist them. And the more I was able to feel what I needed to feel, and a lot of it would be hard emotions like grief and sadness, maybe even despair, maybe even rage. Because part of what's falling apart is not just aspects of your life, it could also be aspects of your identity, where you realize that maybe you were kind of living a lie. Maybe you were not really being true to yourself. Maybe you were tolerating things that you realize afterward were really harmful for you. And all of that brings up a lot of emotions. And the truth that helped me was embracing the fact that, yes, I want it to fall apart. I need it to fall apart. Thank goodness it's falling apart, because it was all a lie. If something is falling apart, typically that is the case. It needed to fall apart because it wasn't based on the truest expression of who you are. I might be projecting on you. You can take or leave whatever I'm saying, but in my experience, if something fell apart in my life, it was because I was stepping into a new identity, and everything in my life that was built on the old identity had to fall apart, because I was no longer the version of myself that would prop up that old life. And 100% of the time, the things that fell apart as a result of me expanding into a more authentic version of myself were things that looking back, how do I say this? Like, so much of our lives as women are being propped up by a version of ourselves that is not the truth of who we are. It's a version of ourselves that is abandoning ourselves, neglecting ourselves, codependent, taking care of everybody at the expense of ourselves, trying to make everybody happy, people pleasing. So yes, thank goodness that's falling apart, because we don't want to be that. We don't want to be that version of ourselves anymore. And so much of our life and other people's lives might be propped up from that version of you. A version of you that is making everything easier for everybody else. And the second you stop doing that, because it's not healthy, the second you stop doing that, things will fall apart. And people might even be mad at you because you're no longer playing a role in their life that was dependent upon your self-abandonment. So again, some of this might not apply to you. You might say that has nothing to do with me. I just have this thing going on and it's causing difficulties and it has nothing to do with anything deeper. Or you might find something in what I'm saying that rings true. And I wanted to touch on the part where you said, I ultimately have zero choice and it's interrupted my desires and actions to start a business. I want to point out something here, because your business is never going to have, like, if you need your life to look a certain way in order to show up in your business, that idea is going to work against you. And something more powerful for you to hold on to is that no matter what your life looks like, no matter what you're going through, you can always do one thing a day for your business, if that is your desire to have a business. And I can say from personal experience that that is how I've built my business. It was not because everything was in order and everything was good and everything was, the way I needed it to be in order to show up a certain way. It was almost as if my business grows from a place of overcoming crazy chaos. And I had to learn how, no matter what I'm going through, it does not take away my power to do something for myself in my business. And that is how I get my power back. So I have gone through incredibly difficult seasons of my life that boggle my mind still looking back. And I never, this might be something I have to work on, but I have never said I can't work on my business because I'm going through XYZ. I have always had a practice of doing one thing every day for my business, no matter what. And that just might be how my brain works. That just might be what I need to do to stay sane. But because my business is such a place where I have created a safe space for me to express myself and feel like myself, it's almost like I need to do one thing every day in my business in order to get through hard times, because that is how I've set up my business. My business was born from a place of self-reclamation and healing. So I don't have this idea or energy around, well, I need my life to be okay and everything to be okay for me to be okay, for me to work on my business. I don't have that feeling. I have a feeling of, even if my life is crazy, I can still do one thing a day for my business, because that's what keeps me in my power. So I want you to have that perspective of, no matter what you're going through, no one and nothing can touch the power of your mind. Like nothing can take that away from you. And a book that might have influenced me here is a book written by Viktor Frankl. It's called Man's Search for Meaning. He went through World War II. And he was a prisoner in the Nazi concentration camps, and he saw horrible things, and he got through that and survived and wrote a book about his experiences. And the book is basically about how no matter what happens to you and how much is done to you and taken from you, you always have the power of your mind. No one can take your mind from you. And I think that's why I have this practice of one thing every day in my business, no matter what I'm going through, is because it's almost like a battle cry. It's almost like no matter what life wants to throw my way, it cannot take away the power that I have to show up for myself. Like, it cannot do that. It cannot take away my mental fortitude. It cannot take away me taking 100% responsibility for what is in my control. And I think when we go through hard times, we have to remember that is you still have a realm of 100% control. There are things you cannot control, and there are things that you can. And our job is to just focus on the things that we can. And I always have control over doing one thing a day for myself in my business. I always have control over how I choose to think about things. Now, this doesn't mean that we're trying to be positive no matter what. This, like I said, part of the process is feeling all the feelings, including the grief and the rage and the anger. So I see that that's what you're doing here, and that's great. You're like, I totally believe in having like, I will have my own hissy fit. When I go through something, I will complain. I will get mad. I will be like, why is this happening? Why are they doing this to me? I will do all the things. And I will also challenge my brain to look for the benefit, to name 3 things I'm grateful for. I did this even when my life was so hard. Like, I went through a time that was so hard that I literally had to stop driving because it was almost like the trauma of what I was going through created a pressure in my brain that made it impossible for me to drive a car. And I actually haven't driven since. And it's been years. And part of that is I live in a country where we don't even own a car. We don't need one. But even in that time of going through that trauma, I would challenge myself to come up with 3 things. Like, every day I would challenge myself to come up with 3 things a day that were blessings that I could be grateful for, that were amazing things. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened today. And it's crazy that even in those dark times, there was always still 3 things. And this is really a superpower. And I think that is how I've trained my brain to actually use challenging times as a catalyst for incredible up-leveling. Like, I haven't grown as a person and as a business because everything went well. I've grown because everything would go unwell and I would still use it to my advantage. So maybe look at your situation and instead of thinking, oh my gosh, this is terrible, it destroys all my plans, start training your brain to ask yourself, wow, how could this be the best thing that has ever happened? How can this move actually be the best thing for my business? What choices do I have? How does this actually pave the way for me and my desires? How is this not an obstacle? In fact, there's a whole book, I don't know if I read it or not, but I can't remember, but the book is titled The Obstacle is the Way. So the thing that we think is in the way is actually the way to everything you want. And it's up to us to either sit there and think that it's blocking us, or to say, actually, this is the fact that my life is falling apart and everything feels so hard and everything is in upheaval, is actually bringing me in closer union with myself and my power and my mental fortitude and what I'm capable of. And I'm going to get to know myself in ways that I never would have before if everything was just hunky-dory. And so this is, really advice that I have learned the hard way. And the sooner that you can get to a place where yes, 100% I believe that we need to have our down in the dumps pity party. We need to get all the emotions out, the complaints, the rant, we need to rant, we need to complain, just get it out. And then step into your power to choose the thoughts that would serve you the best, because it's all a perspective. One thing can happen to someone and they can have a perspective of this is the worst thing ever. The same thing can happen to someone else and they could be like, this is the best thing ever. That's the power. That is the power move. And I've learned that this is just how life goes. And a quote that really helps me, I can't remember who said it, but it goes, adulthood is just learning to carry grief in one hand and gratitude in the other. So like I said, it's feeling the feelings, and also look for the gratitudes, look for the beauty, look for the growth. It's not about needing things to look a certain way in order for you to feel a certain way. It's realizing you can feel it all. Like you said, I set an intention for how I wanted to feel in my home and environment, and now I unexpectedly have to move. You don't need your circumstances to look a certain way in order for you to feel a certain way. And that might be what life is trying to teach you. It's trying to teach you the most powerful thing you can do is to feel the way you want to feel, no matter what your circumstances look like. And that is actually what will help you change your circumstances. But if you need your circumstances to look a certain way in order for you to feel a certain way, you're giving all your power away. And so one small tip that I want to give you here is something that I use. So when I feel like life is hard, that things are falling apart, that all these difficult emotions are coming up, something that I do is, and I talk about this all the time in my Say Yes to Desire group, because we talk a lot about saying yes to our desires, saying yes to how we want to feel. And as you do that, things will fall apart. Things will get really hard. Your identity will, completely go up in flames, and you have to figure out who you are all over again. And I say, get up, get dressed, put on your makeup, put on the nice dress. Don't just get dressed, put on the nice dress. Put on your makeup, do your hair, eat a beautiful breakfast, eat a beautiful lunch, eat a beautiful dinner, get good sleep, and buy yourself the flowers. Because what is happening when we go through hard times is there's a little girl inside of you that is needing to know if she's safe or not. And when we continue to treat ourselves really well, no matter what we're going through, we show that little girl that, yes, you are safe. Your safety doesn't come from your circumstances looking a certain way. Your safety comes from you taking care of you to the best extent of your ability, no matter what. And I think that pretty much all of us, yes, there are exceptions with the crazy things happening in the world, with people living in countries that are going through really hard times. But most of us, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably have complete control over getting up, putting on the nice dress, putting on the makeup, putting your hair together, feeding yourself really well, putting yourself to bed on time, and buying the flowers. And what that's going to do is it's going to show your body that it is safe for you to go through hard times. It is safe for you to feel difficult emotions. If you can do that, man, you're going to be so unstoppable. And maybe that is what life is trying to give to you right now. It's the opportunity to embody the greatest lesson you could possibly learn, which is you always have 100% control over the things that are in your control. And if you focus there, life can't touch you. The same way Viktor Frankl in a concentration camp never let the Nazis take his brain, take his mind, take his mental fortitude. He never gave up that mental piece of him, even though his body was wasting away, even though there was so much evidence around him of people just completely giving up. Like, he talked about seeing grown, strong men just completely emotionally and mentally and physically just give up when facing the evil. He saw grown men just literally lay down on the ground and die because they had just completely given up. And he decided, no, they cannot take my mind from me. They can take everything else from me, but they cannot take my mind. And so I recommend reading that book, Man's Search for Meaning. I read it when I was 21. I'm about to turn 38, and I have picked the book up again, and I'm starting to go through it again. I think it's a really good book for everyone to read. It's definitely one of my top 10. And it just helps you realize that there are certain things that are always in your control, and you just never want to let that go.